Well, Dr. Chapman, I'm so glad to be back here with you. And I want to talk about, now that we know what our love languages is, well, our primary one is, and maybe like secondary love languages and how important those are, what are the big risks of not knowing your love language?
Well, I think when we don't know the other person's love language, chances are we're not going to meet the need for love. You know, I like to picture inside every one of us, inside children, inside adults, there's an emotional love tank. And when the love tank is full, life is beautiful. But when the love tank is empty and you feel like they don't love me, they wish they weren't married to me, life begins to look pretty dark. And so the only way to meet that need for love is to speak love in a language that communicates to them emotionally. And what happened in my counseling with couples, and this is where I discovered the love languages, they would sit in my office and one of them would say, I just feel like he doesn't love me or she doesn't love me. And the other one would say, I don't understand that. I do this and this and this. Why would you not feel loved? And I knew they were sincere. They were expressing love, but they were missing the other person. So that's why it's so important. You can be sincere and still miss each other emotionally. And the love tank gets empty. And life is much more difficult to handle when the love tank is empty, much easier to handle when the love tank is full.
I would agree. And that just brings to memory that song in Fiddler on the Roof, that is like, she's singing, does he love me? And he's singing, does she love me? And she's like, I clean his socks, I wash his clothes, I keep the house, right? Take care of the children. And he's like, does she love me?
You're right. That was an illustration of it right there.
And how does this lead to divorce and those feelings of being really disconnected in a relationship? And is this exacerbated like this? Our tank, does it get emptier faster when we're in stress?
You know, I think it does. I think what happens to many couples is what happened to me in the early days of our marriage. You know, the in-love experience that we typically call we fall in love, it has an average lifespan of 2 years. And we're pushed along with these emotions, and this is the most wonderful person in the world. And then we come down off the high. Well, my wife and I had dated 2.5 years before we got married. So I came down pretty soon after the honeymoon, and our conflicts arose, and we didn't know how to solve conflicts because when you're in love, you don't think you'll have any conflicts. And so we ended up arguing and would raise our voice and say some hateful things. And before long, not only had I lost all those love feelings, I was having negative feelings toward her. And what happens with many couples is at that juncture, they live for a while with these negative feelings and these thoughts that I've married the wrong person, it's not going to work. Then at work or somewhere else, they meet someone else and they get attracted to them. And now they have an emotional attraction, which often leads to a physical attraction and leads to divorce. Whereas if you could have learned this and chosen to speak each other's love language, you would have created a climate in which the two of you could solve conflicts much easier. Because when you feel loved by each other, then as you come to a conflict, you're respecting the other person's position. And you're listening with open ears to hear what they're thinking and what they're feeling. So it makes a huge impact. In fact, I've had many people say to me, Gary, that book, The 5 Love Languages, literally saved our marriage. I mean, we were talking divorce, and we read that book, and the lights came on. It was just like we looked back and realized how we'd missed each other. And we took the quiz, and we started speaking the right language. And the emotions came back, and that's what I hope will happen to couples who read the book. And I hope they read it early on before they get to the place where they feel like make the decision that we're going to give up on it.
Yes. Yeah. I feel the same way about your book. I wish I read it a lot earlier on, like on our honeymoon, maybe, or even while we were dating.
Yes.
I think that would have made a really big difference. And it's important to know this now. And I think that I love how in the 5 love languages, you have great assignments, right? You've given examples, beautiful examples and great assignments to couples, even in the case where they hate each other. Yep. And like, that is powerful to see that transformation. And I know too, like in my practice as well, and working with couples, especially post-menopause, that sense of being roommates versus in love and attracted and emotionally, filled up, right? On fire again. And you touch on that too. What about over age 50? Is there a different way we need to look or communicate these love languages?
I think there may be, because there are many dialects within each of these languages. I call them dialects. This is very similar to spoken language. We all grew up with a language and a dialect. We call it our native tongue. It's the one we understand best. Same thing is true with love. So we have a native tongue, a native love language, a primary love language, I call it. And so within each of those languages, there are many dialects. For example, a lady said to me the other day, she said, "Gary, my husband and I have the same love language." I said, "Wonderful." I said, "What is it?" She said, "Acts of service." But, she said, the things that I want him to do for me are different from the things that he wants me to do for him. Same language, just different dialects. So those kind of things may change over a period of time, whereas at one juncture you really wanted him to do certain things, and now you want him to do other things. So there can be changes, I think, in the dialect, maybe as we get older, but the principle is the same. And typically the love language the primary language tends to stay with us for a lifetime.
Excellent point. And I think this is going to lead us into our third segment.